Chosen one. Listen. Heaven has paused everything to reach you. Right now, while others scroll in numbness and noise, your spirit has been snatched into divine stillness. This moment is not ordinary. It is sacred. You are not here by chance. You are not hearing these words because of an algorithm. This is divine orchestration, a heavenly interruption, a spiritual ambush designed for one reason only: to activate what has been sealed inside of you since before you were born. You have always felt different, haven't you? Since childhood, you've carried something others couldn't name. You've tried to blend in, to play small, to be normal, but something inside of you would never allow it. That something was the seal, the invisible evidence that heaven marked you for a higher purpose. You are not like the rest. You were never meant to be God's chosen one. This world was never your home. That's why the pain hurt deeper. That's why the silence from heaven felt unbearable. That's why the betrayals cut like blades. Because you weren't just surviving life, you were walking through training. You are an earthborn vessel with a heavenly assignment. And now, the final phase of that assignment is being activated. Listen carefully. You are not being recruited, you are being remembered. You are not being offered a new path, you are being shown the original scroll. There are things written about you in the books of heaven, ancient assignments, sacred tasks. You were sealed by angels, set apart, while others were still wandering in darkness. You were not overlooked, you were hidden. There was a time in your life when you felt invisible. You questioned if God had forgotten you. But heaven doesn't forget who it seals. You were not buried. You were planted. And now, the season of sprouting has come. Scripture says in the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid." This is not the world's version of peace. Chosen one. This is not comfort from convenience. This is divine stability in the middle of a spiritual storm. You are being offered a peace that makes no sense, because your calling will make no sense to those around you. But your peace is proof that God is in the room. Think back to the moments when you should have lost your mind. You were close, weren't you? But somehow, you didn't break. Others watched you and thought, how are they still standing? They didn't know you were sealed. They didn't know angels were assigned to you. They didn't see the covering over your life. But the realm of darkness saw it. That's why you were attacked so violently. The enemy doesn't attack the ordinary. Hell knew who you were before you did. That's why the pressure was so relentless. It wasn't because of your past. It was because of your future. The warfare you've endured is prophetic evidence that you are chosen, and now, chosen one. The sealing is being activated. You have entered the final preparation phase. This is no longer about surviving your pain, it's about stepping into your position. Everything in your life up to this moment has been preparing you for what's about to unfold. You are about to be remembered in places where you were forgotten. Doors that were bolted shut are about to unlock, not because of who you know, but because of who knows you in heaven. This isn't about earthly favor. This is about divine access. And with that access comes responsibility. Don't mistake activation for applause. The crowd may not cheer for you. In fact, your movement will confuse the masses. But you weren't chosen for applause. You were chosen for impact. Chosen one. This is a moment of awakening. You can no longer pretend to be asleep. The seal demands action. The assignment is calling, and heaven is watching to see your response. Comment the number 777 below if your spirit knows this is your moment. 777 is heaven's confirmation of divine completion, divine sealing, and divine commissioning. When you type it, you're not just commenting, you're prophesying over your own future. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Not for the algorithm, but because this message is part of your training, your clarity, and your courage. Stay in alignment with the frequency of heaven. You've always wondered why you were never truly accepted. Even in rooms full of people, you felt like an outsider. You could mimic their joy, laugh at their jokes, and even nod at their empty advice, but deep inside, there was a sacred disconnect, and you blamed yourself. Didn't you? You thought something was wrong with you, that somehow your difference was a flaw. But the truth is, your difference was the evidence that you were marked, not by people, but by the hand of the Almighty. You weren't being rejected. You were being protected from attachments that would delay your calling. You weren't being overlooked. You were being preserved. What you saw as loneliness was actually separation. What you felt as rejection was actually redirection. Because you were chosen. You could not bond with what was beneath your calling. Heaven was guarding your heart from premature alignments. Some friendships failed. Some relationships ended. Some dreams collapsed. And in every loss, there was a whisper, "You don't belong here," because chosen one. The world's systems were never designed for you. You were not built for shallow waters. You were born to walk on the waves, to tread where others sink, to navigate the impossible with divine direction. You are not common, and heaven never intended for you to blend in with the crowd. That's why your life has been nothing like theirs. Even your battles were uncommon. Others struggled for a moment. Yours lasted years. Others fell and got back up. Your falls shattered you. But somehow, even in pieces, you still had purpose. Somehow, the fire didn't consume you. Somehow, your spirit kept whispering, "There's more," because there is. There is more to you than they saw, more than you believed. You are God's contradiction, the wounded warrior, the silent storm, the broken vessel carrying holy oil. And everything you went through was working together to refine the seal that was already on you. The people who hurt you didn't know who you were. They didn't know they were coming against someone sealed by the host of heaven. But every tear you cried was recorded. Every moment you felt invisible was seen. And every heartbreak you endured was not wasted. God doesn't waste anything, He seals. He redeems it. You thought your pain disqualified you. You thought your mistakes cancelled your mission. But, chosen one, how can something human undo what was sealed by angels? You didn't mark yourself. You didn't earn your calling. You were chosen. Before the battle, before the breakdown, before the betrayal. And even now, the seal remains. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 11, verse 29, still echo today. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. That means your calling cannot be revoked. Not by people, not by failure, not even by you. You may have walked away from it, but it never walked away from you. That's why you can still feel the pull. That's why you can't settle. That's why nothing ever fully satisfies you. Not money, not success, not approval, because your spirit was designed for something eternal. That's why, even in rooms full of applause, you still felt the ache. Even with achievements stacked around you, something whispered, "This isn't it." Because you weren't created to be admired, you were created to be assigned. You weren't built to chase platforms, you were built to carry power. Your spirit knows this isn't home. That knowing is your compass, even in your darkest nights. The seal never left. Even when you questioned everything, heaven never questioned you. And now, you are being summoned again. Not because you were ready, but because the time is ready. Your name is echoing through the chambers of heaven. The time of waiting is shifting into the time of revealing. And with that revealing comes clarity. You're starting to see why things happened the way they did. You're beginning to understand that every moment of pain had prophetic precision. Every door that shut was saving you from compromise. Every detour was preparing your heart. Every no from heaven was really a not yet. Because now, the timing aligns with the seal. You are not marked by man. You are sealed by the authority of heaven. You are not labeled by your trauma. You are defined by your assignment. You are not the sum of your scars. You are the living proof that divine selection often walks through fire. Chosen one. You've been misunderstood because you are set apart. People cannot understand what God has hidden. And now, what was hidden is being revealed in power. You will not have to explain yourself. You will simply walk in the authority that speaks louder than words. There's something stirring in your spirit right now. You can feel it. Adivine un rest. A shift beneath the surface of your life that refuses to let you settle any longer. That's not anxiety. That's not fear. That's spiritual awakening. What's waking up in you is not small. It's ancient. It's holy. It's the assignment that's been buried under years of confusion, trauma, and delay. And now, it's rising. You have always known deep down that you were born for something more. But every time you tried to pursue it, life fought back. People misunderstood you. Doors slammed. Circumstances shifted. And worst of all, you began to doubt yourself. You questioned if you were just imagining it all. But chosen one, you weren't wrong. You were just early. The spiritual realm knew who you were becoming. That's why hell attacked you so early. It's why your childhood was marked by chaos. It's why betrayal came from those closest to you. It's why your mind has been the battleground. Because the enemy doesn't fight what he doesn't fear, and he feared your future. But you need to hear this now. You are not behind. Everything that felt like delay was actually disguise. Heaven was hiding you in plain sight. You were being developed in silence. Your name was sealed on scrolls that flesh and blood couldn't see. And when the time was right, God whispered, "Now, chosen one, this is your now." The seal has not lifted. The calling has not expired. And no matter how broken you feel, you are still chosen. The evidence isn't in your perfection, it's in your persistence. You're still here. You're still searching. You're still sensitive to the voice of God. That's proof enough. We find in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, "I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength." And that strength is not loud. It's not prideful. It doesn't boast. It endures. That quiet strength inside you, the one that got you through nights of despair, through betrayals, through breakdowns, that was Christ in you. Even when you didn't recognize him, the enemy wanted you to believe that your struggle was proof you weren't chosen. But that's the lie. The truth is this: your struggle is proof you're a threat. If you weren't dangerous to darkness, hell wouldn't be so obsessed with you. But from the moment you were born, a war was launched against your mind, your identity, your focus. Why? Because there's something you carry that generations before you couldn't hold. There's a torch in your spirit, a fire that refuses to be put out. You've tried to suppress it, to bury it under a normal life, but it keeps breaking through. That fire is your assignment calling for air. And here's what's dangerous: you're no longer afraid of being different. You've tried fitting in, and it made you miserable. You've tried following the crowd, and it broke your spirit. Now, you're learning to stand alone. And in that place of isolation, you've found your authority. This is the place where God begins to whisper strategies. This is where he reveals the why behind your pain. This is where he starts connecting the dots of your timeline, showing you how every battle, every loss, every delay was actually preparation for this moment. Your final assignment isn't being handed to you randomly. It's been unfolding quietly, piece by piece, behind the scenes of your life. You thought you were wandering, but you were being led. You thought you were failing, but you were being formed. Chosen one. There's no more time to shrink back, nor more time to delay. You are not waiting on God. Heaven is waiting on your yes. And you don't need to have all the answers to say yes. Obedience isn't about understanding, it's about alignment. Right now, type this in the comments: I will obey. 3 words. That's it. But when you type it, you're doing something powerful. You're not just interacting with a video, you're responding to heaven. You're telling the darkness, you don't own me anymore. You're telling your past, you can't hold me hostage. You're telling God, I hear you, and I surrender. I will obey isn't a promise of perfection, it's a declaration of position. You are positioning yourself for activation. You are telling heaven you're ready to carry what was sealed inside you. And yes, you're scared. That's normal. But fear doesn't cancel your calling. In fact, moving forward in fear is often the greatest act of faith. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's obedience in spite of fear. And your obedience will unlock doors no man can shut. So say it again, quietly or boldly, in your room or in your spirit: I will obey. Let heaven hear it. Let hell tremble because of it. Chosen one, your final assignment is too important to delay. The time of wandering is over. The time of activation is now. There is a moment in the spirit realm when heaven makes a move so precise, so intentional, that hell cannot stop it, only try to delay it. That moment has come for you. What's rising in you is not random passion. It's a blueprint, a divine design that's been stored inside your soul, protected beneath layers of pain, betrayal, and misunderstanding. And now, it's being awakened. You may not realize it, but you've been carrying a scroll since birth. Not one written on paper, but one etched into the very fabric of your being. A scroll written by God Himself, full of instructions, assignments, and authority. Others looked at your life and only saw survival. But heaven always saw a carrier of divine blueprints, a hidden architect for kingdom realities on earth. Everything you've lived through has been working to protect that scroll. Your setbacks were security systems. Your heartbreaks were shields. Your delays were divine detours meant to keep you from spaces that would have poisoned your purpose. You thought life was random, but the truth is, God was hiding you in plain sight. The reason you haven't fit into religious boxes, the reason you've never fully aligned with the world's systems, the reason you've always felt torn between the seen and unseen, is because the blueprint you carry doesn't match what others are building. It's not supposed to. Yours is not a copy. It's an original pattern, designed for a specific generation, for a specific region, for a specific move of God. And now, the seal is opening. You are entering a time where the mysteries within you will begin to surface. Ideas you thought were random are actually prophetic instructions. Dreams you dismissed as fantasy are glimpses of heaven's design. Every burden that refuses to leave your spirit, every injustice that keeps you up at night, these are signs that the blueprint is becoming active. God doesn't awaken a burden without attaching a solution to the person carrying it. You weren't meant to just feel the weight of the world, you were meant to build the answer for it. But you can't build what you don't recognize. That's why God has brought you to this moment of unveiling. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. This verse isn't just poetic. It's prophetic. You were known before you were born. You were appointed before you were aware. You were set apart before you were seen. And now, that appointment is calling to your spirit, not just to exist, but to construct. What you build will not look like what others are building. That's why their blueprints have never satisfied you. You've tried to copy them. You've tried to fit into templates that drained your soul. But nothing worked. Because you weren't born to imitate. You were born to originate. God is calling you to awaken the scroll, to trust the unseen code written inside of you. You are not disqualified by your past. You are not unworthy because of your pain. In fact, those very things have prepared your heart for the weight of revelation that is coming. The blueprint is not just strategy, it's identity. It's how you see the world. It's how you move through life. It's why your heart breaks over certain things and rejoices over others. It's not emotional imbalance, it's spiritual design. But this blueprint isn't just about vision, it's about obedience. Because vision without submission becomes ambition. And ambition, apart from heaven, becomes rebellion. That's why God is awakening the blueprint in layers, little by little, not to frustrate you, but to fortify you. You must be able to carry what you're called to build. So many start building without the seal, and they burn out. They launch without being sent. They speak without being shaped. But not you. You've been forged in fire, pressed in the dark, prepared in silence. And now, the scroll within you is being read aloud in the spirit realm. What was hidden is now being summoned. There's a reason you can't escape the vision. It keeps finding you in your dreams, in your thoughts, even in your conversations. That's the blueprint, knocking. You can't ignore it anymore. Heaven won't allow it. Your very life depends on it. You are not being invited into a fantasy. You are being summoned into divine construction. The blueprints are real. The scroll is active. And the time to build has come. Chosen one. The fact that you're still here is already a miracle. The storms you've survived would have drowned anyone else. The pressure, the warfare, the confusion, it wasn't natural. It was spiritual targeting. Hell saw your seal before you ever understood it yourself. And yet, here you are, not just breathing, but awakening, not just existing, but hearing the call that won't stop echoing inside your soul. You've questioned your value. You've asked God why He would choose someone like you. You've even whispered in the dark, "Why me?" But the question has never been, "Why you?" The real question is, who else? Who else could have survived what you did and still carry light? Who else could endure the crushing and still remain tender to the voice of God? You didn't make it through all that pain just to exist. You were preserved for a divine reason. And every hit you took, every night you cried in silence, was watched by heaven and counted as training. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a survivor of prophetic pressure. And that pressure has now prepared you for the next level. That's why you felt the shift. The things that used to satisfy no longer do. The places you used to run to feel safe no longer fit. Because you are being called out of survival and into assignment. This is the shift from pain to purpose. From wandering to warfare. You are being positioned by the hand of God for your final activation. Satan has tried everything to convince you that you're too broken, too late, too inconsistent. But listen, God never expected you to be perfect. He expected you to be willing. The seal that marks your life is not for the qualified, it's for the obedient. And your obedience is what activates heaven's response. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 14, "For many are called, but few are chosen." Oh, you are not part of the crowd. You are part of the remnant, the few, the marked, the ones God has preserved, protected, and positioned for such a time as this. And now, the atmosphere around your life is changing. The realm of the Spirit is making space for your assignment to come forward. You will begin to notice divine patterns, people being removed, clarity being increased, doors being presented. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Chosen one. You have been sown in silence, but you will be revealed in power. The same God who covered you in the cave is now commanding you to step out. No more shrinking. No more hiding. No more apologizing for the weight you carry. It's time to rise. You've been hearing confirmations everywhere. Conversations you weren't meant to hear. Scriptures that jump out at you. Random moments that pierce your spirit. That's heaven whispering, "You were born for this." And now, I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. If this message has stirred something in you, if your spirit feels the pull, if your tears are matching every word, don't keep this to yourself. Someone else is waiting to hear this. Someone else is on the verge of giving up, and your decision to share could be their lifeline. Take a moment to like this message, not for ego, not for numbers, but to help it reach others who are carrying the same seal and don't know it yet. Share this with someone who's been under spiritual pressure and doesn't understand why. This could be the message that unlocks their calling. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to, not because of obligation, but because this space is different. It's not about content, it's about confirmation. It's about staying aligned with the flow of what heaven is releasing for the chosen ones. Every message is part of a larger scroll, and staying connected means staying sensitive to divine updates. You are not alone in this. There's a remnant rising, across nations, across languages, across denominations. God is activating His sealed ones. And if this message has found you, it's because you're one of them. Don't ignore the stirring. Don't silence the pull. What's happening in your heart is real. What's awakening in your spirit is divine. This is not hype. It's holy. And your response determines your readiness. There are others who need to hear this. And you may be the bridge between their silence and their breakthrough. So move not in fear, but in faith. Let your action be an offering. Heaven has paused everything around you for this moment. You've been sealed. You've been trained. Now you're being launched. There's a sound heaven recognizes. It's not the sound of perfection. It's not the sound of religious performance. It's the sound of surrender. The moment your heart breaks open, not out of shame, but out of yes. That's the sound that moves angels. That's the sound that wakes up scrolls. That's the sound that activates what's been hidden. And that sound, chosen one, is rising from you now. You've tried to explain what you've felt. You've tried to put language to your pain, your visions, your spiritual weight, but no one seemed to fully understand. That's because your language belongs to heaven. Your tears were prayers. Your silence was warfare. Your weakness was worship. And the realm of the Spirit has always known what others missed. You were sealed long before you were seen. People judged your process because they didn't have access to your prophecy. They saw the breakdown, but not the blueprint. They saw the trauma, but not the training. But heaven saw it all, and heaven did not flinch. You were never too far gone. You were never too broken. You were being prepared. Even when you wandered, the seal remained. Even when you doubted, angels stood watch. Even when you cursed your calling out of frustration and fatigue, the assignment hovered over your life like smoke around a burning altar. Because this wasn't just your idea, it was heaven's decision. And what heaven seals, hell can't steal. Now, you are standing in the space between what has been and what must come. The veil is thinning. The noise around you is being silenced. You're beginning to see clearly. This is the moment the seal begins to speak. You've been through too much to stay silent. You've carried too much oil to stay seated. This is not just about breakthrough. This is about birthing. The pain you feel now is not punishment, it's contraction. You're not being crushed, you're being delivered. And what's coming out of you isn't small. It's holy. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 19, verse 21, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Your plans were good, but His purpose is unstoppable. You've wrestled with timelines, opportunities, expectations, but what's about to unfold will not come by your effort. It will come by divine alignment. This next season is not about your hustle. It's about your yes. It's about trusting the seal. Even when you don't see the full scroll, you've done what you could with human strength. But now, heaven is taking over. The doors you couldn't open will swing wide, not because of striving, but because you're finally in sync with the scroll. Divin alignement means divine accélération. What took years before will take moments now, not by force, not by chance, but by order. And the key to that order is trust, trusting the one who sealed you first. God is not asking for your strategy. He's asking for your surrender. You've come to the end of your own map, and that's exactly where the scroll begins to unroll. What's been locked inside of you for decades is being stirred. Your gifts, your discernment, your authority, they are not random talents. They are tools of the sealed. You've felt it in dreams. You've seen it in visions. You've heard whispers no one else caught. And even when you tried to dismiss it all as imagination, the truth refused to let you rest. You were not imagining. You were remembering. Because your spirit has always known. There's more. More than a routine life. More than emotional survival. More than surface-level faith. You were built for depth. For assignment. For territories. You've been carrying answers to problems others don't even see yet. And God is saying, it's time. This is not about speed. It's about sacred obedience. One step at a time. One act of faith at a time. The seal doesn't demand perfection. It demands movement. And now, it's time for a declaration. Not just for heaven to see, but for your own soul to recognize, I am ready. Type the number 511 inch, the comments. 511 is more than digits. It's a prophetic symbol. 5 for grace. 1 for divine authority. Another one for new beginnings. Together, 511 represents heaven's grace is unlocking your assignment. Walk in divine order now. No, it's a number of awakening, of alignment, and of access. When you type it, you are declaring to your future, I'm done hiding. I'm stepping into position. The seal is open, and I will move with it. Let the enemy see it. Let the angels record it. Let your soul remember it. 511 means the wait is over. The seal is active. The chosen one is awake. There's a sobering truth that many never realize. Your assignment was never just about you. The healing, the warfare, the awakening, these were not random chapters in your life story. They were layers of preparation, strategic shaping. You were not only being delivered, you were being positioned to deliver. Your calling reaches far beyond your personal restoration. It touches generations. It disrupts bloodlines. It reclaims territory that darkness thought it owned forever. The reason your battles have been so intense is because the consequences of your obedience are too far-reaching to measure. Every time you say yes to God, chains begin to rattle in places you've never been. There are children you haven't birthed yet who will never taste the curses that ran through your bloodline. There are cities you've never stepped into that will shift because of your prayers. There are generational spirits that will flee, not because you shouted, but because you stood. Your assignment is not personal, it's prophetic. What you mistook for delay was actually deep training. The kind of training that can't be taught in books or seminars. The kind of training that crushes pride and births spiritual weight. You've been trained in the language of heaven through suffering, through silence, through obedience. Somewhere along the way, you learned how to discern atmospheres, how to feel tension others ignored, how to detect manipulation masked as kindness. You learned how to spot counterfeit before it even had a chance to speak. That sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was wiring. Your spirit was being tuned to the frequency of deliverance. And that's why the enemy hates you. Because you're not just chosen, you're a breaker. You carry authority, not just to preach, but to shift. You walk into rooms and things tremble, not because you announced yourself, but because the seal speaks louder than your voice. Hell recognizes who you are, even when you still question it. And every attack against you has been a desperate attempt to silence your movement. But chosen one, you can't be silenced. You were sealed for this. Every scar is a symbol. Every wound, a witness. You are not perfect. but you are positioned. And now, your life is entering a new dimension, not one of comfort, but of consequence. Every step you take now impacts atmospheres beyond your sight. This is spiritual government. You've been called to legislate in the Spirit. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, in 2 Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to demolish strongholds. Lo, you carry divine weapons, not for show, but for shifting. This is why your presence carries pressure, not because of you, but because of what you're carrying in the Spirit. You weren't sent to be passive. You were sent to pull things down. This assignment is not glamorous. It's not Instagrammable. It's not always celebrated, but it is holy. And you were made for it. You will be misunderstood, perhaps even ridiculed. But the scroll demands obedience over approval. You weren't called to be liked. You were called to be light. Your obedience will break cycles. Your words will tear down altars. Your presence will interrupt demonic schedules. This is the cost of the seal. You can't walk casually when your shadow carries weight. You can't entertain darkness when your DNA is light. You can't blend in when your very existence provokes the spirit realm. Heaven trusts you because you've been tested. You've been through things that should have taken you out. And yet you're still sensitive to the whisper of God. That is rare. That is precious. That is the evidence that you're ready. And no, you won't always feel qualified. But God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the chosen. He shapes them in silence, then sends them with fire. He hides them in the dark, then reveals them as weapons in his hand. You are one of those weapons, not because you've mastered everything, but because you've surrendered everything. Your life is no longer your own. Your comfort no longer your idol. Your reputation no longer your God. You have become the kind of vessel heaven can trust with territorial responsibility. You're not just here to speak truth, you're here to enforce it. So don't look for validation. Don't wait for confirmation. When you walk into places and feel the shift, that is your proof. When you speak and the atmosphere changes, that is your proof. When people reject you without cause, that is your proof. You've been assigned to carry something few can understand, but that's okay. You weren't sealed for understanding, you were sealed for impact. And that impact begins now. You've reached a point where your spirit no longer tolerates the shallow, surface-level conversation drain you. Environments without presence agitate you. It's not because you're hard to please, it's because you've been marked for depth. There is a weight on your life now that no longer fits inside hollow spaces. You are being called deeper, higher, further into realms your flesh cannot follow, and your past cannot anchor. This restlessness you've been feeling lately is not confusion. It's a holy stirring, a divine disturbance. Something in you is being summoned beyond what is familiar, because when you carry something eternal, stagnation becomes suffocating. You weren't created to plateau. You were sealed to progress, to advance, to walk with God through dimensions of purpose most will never even perceive. That's why you've felt isolated. Not because people hate you, but because they can't handle the frequency you now operate in. Their conversation doesn't feed you. Their pace doesn't match yours. Their goals no longer align with the sound of your calling. And it's not pride, it's prophetic transition. You are shedding what cannot go with you. You are being unyoked from anything that dilutes your discernment or delays your movement. God is jealous for what He placed inside you. That's why He'll disrupt anything that tries to compromise your consecration. You may not understand it in the moment, but every removal, every closed door, every denied access was divine protection. He's not just guarding your heart, He's guarding your scroll. Because what you're carrying is not common. It is territorial. It is generational. It is time-sensitive. There are places you've walked into where your spirit was immediately agitated, not because of what was said, but because of what was present. That's discernment. It's not paranoia, it's preparation. You've been trained to read atmospheres because what you're assigned to do will require you to shift them. You weren't sealed to adapt. You were sealed to interrupt. And now, you're beginning to see it. Conversations you once tolerated now feel like sand in your mouth. Entertainment that once relaxed you now grieves your spirit. People you once idolized now feel spiritually out of alignment. Don't ignore these signs. They are not mood swings. They are the hand of God extracting you from environments that have expired. The more weight you carry, the more silence you need, because clarity cannot dwell in cluttered atmospheres. And you, chosen one, are in a season where the voice of God must become the loudest sound in your life, not out of legalism, but out of survival. The scroll you carry requires precision. One wrong agreement can cost you months. One compromised conversation can cost you a window of obedience. There is a shift happening around you that you can't fully explain yet, but your spirit is picking it up. Heaven is aligning details without your permission. Strategies are forming. Assignments are unfolding. And though your natural eyes can't see it all, your spirit is already being positioned to walk into what has been prepared. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 8. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. That verse is not a motivational quote. It's a commanded confidence. You are not stepping into the unknown. You are stepping into what God already walked through first. You're not blazing a trail. You're walking a path already cleared by angels. They went ahead of you while you were still in the dark, clearing debris, disarming traps, confusing the enemy's plans. You've cried through nights unaware that divine warriors were fighting beside you. Every delay was heaven buying time to prepare your landing. Every no was angelic resistance against premature access. You weren't denied, you were being defended. And yes, it still feels risky, because stepping into the unknown always does. But faith is not about feeling safe. It's about obeying, even when your mind is full of questions. Faith is doing it anyway. Obedience is the currency of movement. And you are moving not by force, but by divine pull. Chosen one. This is not a detour. This is not confusion. This is extraction. God is pulling you away from the noise and into clarity, from distraction into dimension, from crowd-pleasing into assignment alignment. Let the detachment happen. Let the silence stretch you. Let the wilderness sanctify your ears, because what's coming next will require a voice untainted by compromise, a vision unhindered by fear, and a vessel fully yielded. And that vessel is you. There is a reason you've been feeling the urgency. A spiritual intensity that refuses to let you return to old patterns. What used to feel comfortable now feels foreign. What used to feel acceptable now feels dangerous. That's not pressure, it's prophetic alignment. Your spirit knows that you've crossed an invisible line. A line between who you were and who you were always destined to become. You can't go back. Not because God would reject you, but because your assignment won't fit in old atmospheres. What's coming out of you is bigger than where you've been. The vision you carry is too heavy for shallow company. That's why the shaking hasn't stopped. It's not punishment, it's preparation. God is stripping away everything that cannot sustain the next version of you. Chosen one. This is not a season of ease, it's a season of emergence. Something holy is breaking open inside you, not through applause, but through agony, because birthing always hurts. And what you're carrying in your spirit is not ordinary. It's sacred. It's sealed. It's costly. You've felt the labor pains, the emotional stretching, the spiritual heaviness, the sense that something is changing even if you can't explain how. And in your heart, you know, I'm not who I was even a month ago. That's the power of God's refining fire. It doesn't always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it moves in quiet, pressure, invisible weight, silent surrender. You are surrendering parts of yourself you didn't know you had, parts that were shaped by trauma, parts that were built out of fear, parts that clung to false identities just to survive. But survival is no longer your assignment. Now, you're stepping into dominion, and dominion requires clarity. That's why God is silencing every competing voice. That's why you can't tolerate distractions like you used to. That's why your circle is getting smaller, and your sensitivity is getting sharper. You're not isolating. You're being set apart. You're being trained to hear only one voice, His. As the prophet wrote in the scroll of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision awaits, an appointed time, it will surely come. It will not delay. Wait for it." There is a vision written into your bones, a fire etched into your spirit. It may feel delayed, but it's not denied. Heaven does not operate on human clocks. The things God promised you were not figments of emotion, they were spiritual downloads. And even if others forgot what you shared, even if you stopped talking about it, heaven remembers. Every instruction, every whisper, every moment of faith when no one else saw it recorded. Heaven doesn't forget surrendered seats. And now, you're standing in a divine intersection between the sealed word and the seen fulfillment. This is where warfare intensifies. Not because you're cursed, but because you're close. The enemy always fights the loudest right before heaven releases the promise. Your resistance is proof that your scroll is no longer dormant. Something in the spirit has been unlocked, and you can feel the weight of the moment. Your decisions now matter more than ever. The conversations you entertain, the atmosphere you sit in, the voices you let near your heart. Not because you're being religious, but because you're carrying something fragile, yet powerful. Like a flame in the wind, your purpose must be shielded until it fully ignites. Chosen one. The next doors in your life are not opened by popularity, strategy, or force. They are opened by purity, by obedience, by discernment. That's why God is purging your appetite, removing your taste for compromise. He is delivering you from people-pleasing, breaking the need to be understood, making you invisible to the wrong people so you can be visible to divine connections. It doesn't matter if they don't recognize you. You weren't sent to be recognized. You were sent to reveal. And revelation always comes with rejection. But rejection will not stop the assignment. It will only purify your focus. Now, you must respond, not with noise, not with long declarations, but with one simple act of agreement. Type, "I'm still here." M, because you are. Through all of it, through the warfare, through the confusion, through the silence, through the heartbreak, you're still here. And that's not weakness, that's proof. Proof that the seal works. Proof that God is still breathing over your story. Proof that nothing formed against you has prospered. Proof that what was buried is now breaking through the soil. So don't wait until everything is clear to say yes again. Don't wait until the pain stops to move. Don't wait until you feel brave to obey. The seal isn't waiting on your emotions. Heaven is moving. And if you're still here, still listening, still burning, it means the scroll is open. The angels are watching. And your next assignment is near. There's something holy about a heart that keeps showing up. A heart that refuses to quit. A spirit that still responds to the whisper of God after everything it's been through. That's you. Chosen one. You've been knocked down, betrayed, ignored. You've watched seasons change while feeling like you were stuck in the same wilderness. And yet, you're still here. There's a special kind of anointing on survivors. Not just those who survived physically, but those who survived spiritually. Those who kept the fire of faith alive when everything in their world was drenched in discouragement. Those who didn't just quote scripture when things were good, but clung to it when God seemed silent. That's who you are. Not someone who stumbled into calling, but someone who was forged by fire. And that fire didn't just refine you, it qualified you. Your scars are not shameful. They are sacred. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was divine restraint. And your stillness wasn't laziness, it was obedience in disguise. You've been hidden, not forgotten. And now, God is lifting the covering, not to entertain you, not to elevate your name, but to reveal His. There's something about your life that's about to speak louder than your voice ever could. Because when heaven reveals someone, hell takes notice. That's why the warfare around your mind has increased. That's why the pressure around your peace has been so unrelenting. Because your visibility is shifting. You are moving from the shadows into the scroll's spotlight. Not for applause, but for assignment. Not to be famous, but to be faithful. God is positioning you as a vessel that others will read like a letter, a walking testimony, a living scroll, the kind that doesn't need to say much because the fruit speaks for itself. And even now, your name is being spoken in rooms you haven't entered, not by people but by angels, because the next phase of your assignment involves access to places that require authority, access to hearts that require tenderness, access to territories that require boldness, and you carry all three. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, verse 10, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and vice versa." God has watched how you handled the little, the quiet seasons, the no-name assignments, the background roles. He watched how you served without clapping, how you gave without recognition, how you obeyed when no one saw. And now, He's trusting you with more. But more won't come with ease. It will come with weight, with responsibility, with greater levels of spiritual pressure. And that's not to scare you, it's to prepare you. You're not walking into comfort. You're walking into confrontation with darkness, with destiny, with anything that tries to keep you from full obedience. And yet, despite the pressure, there will be peace. Because when you walk in sync with heaven, the winds obey you, not because of your voice, but because of your alignment. You are being given new authority, the kind that cannot be manufactured, the kind that only comes through process. So don't question why it took so long. Heaven was preparing the weight before releasing the wind. And now that the wind is blowing, you're not being thrown, you're being carried. You don't have to strive, you only need to surrender. And as this shift happens in you, don't keep it to yourself. Someone needs to hear what your spirit already knows. Someone needs this exact word to pull them out of despair, confusion, or compromise. They don't need a viral video, they need a voice that carries presence, and you can help that voice reach them. If this message is burning in your heart like it, if it echoed what you've been silently hearing, share it. And if you haven't already subscribed now, not for hype, but for holy momentum, because what you're sensing right now is not just inspiration, it's activation. And staying connected to this flow keeps you aligned with what heaven is pouring out in this hour. This space isn't for everyone, it's for the sealed, for the marked, for the misunderstood ones who have always felt heaven pulling at their chest, even when the world was trying to shut them down. You're not imagining things, you're awakening. And that awakening is part of a larger movement. You've been sealed by the Spirit, protected by angels, assigned by heaven. And now, you're being revealed. You are walking proof that God doesn't need perfect people, He just needs available ones. And you, chosen one, have been made available through your pain, through your losses, through your unwavering yes. So breathe deep, straighten your back, lift your head. You're not who you were. You're not where you were. And what's ahead of you is greater than anything you've lost. This isn't your reward, it's your release. There's a silence that speaks louder than any storm. And you've lived through it, not just once, but over and over. The kind of silence where you ask questions and hear nothing. The kind where your prayers bounce off the ceiling, where your worship feels like it's falling into a void. That silence was not abandonment, it was consecration. God wasn't punishing you. He was separating you, preparing you in holy isolation. Many don't survive that kind of season. The mind spins, the heart aches, the soul grows tired. But you endured it not because you were strong, but because you were sealed. Something in you refused to let go, even when logic told you to walk away. That wasn't your willpower, it was divine preservation. Angels were stationed around you. You were never alone. Even when you felt abandoned, the silence was strategy. Chosen one. Divine isolation is never wasted. You were pulled away from noise so heaven could rewire your hearing. The silence wasn't about discipline, it was about refining your frequency. There are levels of clarity that cannot be accessed in crowds. There are whispers from God that only come in the wilderness. And you were brought there, not because you failed, but because you were being qualified for deeper dimensions. The silence made you sensitive. You can now pick up on what others miss. You discern before words are spoken. You feel shifts in the spirit before they manifest in the natural. This sensitivity isn't weakness, it's evidence of your training. Others see storms, you feel assignments. Others follow trends, you follow timing. You've been reprogrammed to move in sync with the flow of heaven, not the pressure of man. And that's rare. That's why your relationships have changed. Why some people can't understand you anymore. Why your spirit has grown allergic to shallow atmospheres. You've outgrown environments that no longer match your maturity. That's not pride, it's prophetic growth. You're no longer hungry for attention, you're hungry for accuracy. You don't crave platforms, you crave presence. You don't seek applause, you seek alignment. Isolation taught you how to depend on God when no one else was left. It stripped away the need to be seen, the desire to be understood, the temptation to perform. You were broken down to the blueprint. What was fake had to fall off. What was rooted in insecurity had to die. And what was real, the sealed part of you, remained. God wasn't being cruel. He was being intentional. Because the oil you carry now can't be counterfeited. It came through pressing, through pain, through the absence of validation, and it carries a fragrance that announces heaven's hand without you having to say a word. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 27, verse 5, "For in the day of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock." Lack, you weren't just hidden, you were sheltered, protected in secret, guarded while misunderstood. And now, that shelter has become your strength. The quiet place has become your source of confidence. Because when everything was stripped away, you discovered something unshakable. You were still his, and he was still yours. This kind of intimacy can't be faked. It's not taught in rooms, it's learned in caves. And every time you cried out, even when the heavens felt silent, your voice was recorded, your tears were tracked, your questions weren't ignored, they were written into the fabric of your becoming. And now that silence has shifted, you can feel it. There's a weight in the air, a sense of divine movement. The atmosphere around you has changed. You don't even have the full language for it yet. But something is different. The ache that used to paralyze you has now become fuel. The void that once screamed with emptiness is now full of divine signals. You hear him differently. You move more slowly, but more surely. The wilderness didn't break you, it revealed you. And heaven is responding. Because God doesn't forget those who keep worshipping in the dark. He doesn't ignore the ones who remain loyal in the silence. And when he moves, he doesn't just restore, he releases. You're about to be sent not as who you were, but as who you truly are. The wilderness was never meant to be your prison. It was your proving ground. Now you walk with a limp and a flame. You walk with scars and authority. You walk not with explanations, but with evidence. The kind of evidence only the hidden ones carry. And when people ask how you made it, all you'll be able to say is, "Grace kept me. God trained me. And the silence taught me everything." End of law. There's a holy tension in your life right now. A sense that you're caught between two worlds. You've come too far to turn back. But you haven't yet seen the full picture of what's ahead. That space, the in-between, is sacred. It's where God builds unshakable foundations. Not foundations built on applause, certainty, or comfort, but on faith. Quiet, rough, tested faith. You're not being delayed. You're being developed, chosen one. The ceiling on your life has never been about speed, it's been about structure. God knows what he placed inside of you. He knows the weight of the oil. He knows the magnitude of the scroll. And he refuses to let it rest on a structure that isn't ready to sustain it. That's why you've been pruned so aggressively. That's why he's been so silent at times. because what you carry is too precious to risk spoiling. You've been asking him to reveal more. You've cried out for clarity. But in this hour, God is not revealing more details. He's revealing more of himself. And what he's showing you isn't just strategy. It's identity. You're starting to see that you're not just a believer. You are a kingdom weapon, a vessel wrapped in flesh, sealed by eternity, placed in time. That revelation alone is dangerous. It shakes hell. It terrifies darkness. Because you're not just coming alive, you're becoming aware. And awareness is what activates authority. The moment you stop questioning if you're chosen and start walking like it, the atmosphere around you changes. You start seeing differently. You stop begging and start commanding. You stop tolerating things that once drained you. You no longer ask permission to obey, you just move. But don't mistake this awareness for arrival. This is not the finish line. This is the initiation into divine territory. The scroll is not just about you fulfilling your purpose, it's about you taking back ground the enemy has held for too long, because there are things that run in your family that stop with you. There are generational patterns that end at your feet. You've been called to interrupt dysfunction, to reverse curses, to speak where others stayed silent, to obey where others rebelled. And that weight you've felt since childhood, that sense that you were carrying something no one else could see. It wasn't your imagination, it was your mantle. You've already learned this the hard way. You've tasted the bitterness of missing a divine window. You've seen what happens when you give people access who were never assigned. But even that God will redeem. Nothing is wasted. Every scar will serve as a warning. Every fall will become a foothold for others climbing after you. Because, chosen one, this is bigger than you. Always has been. This is about generations, about bloodlines, about kingdom, legacy. And you are the first in the line of the repaired. The one who says yes so others don't have to live in no. This is your legacy being written in real time. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 2, verse 21. Those who cleanse themselves from what is dishonorable will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the Master, and prepared to do any good work. You've been set apart, not just for salvation, but for special purposes. That's why you never fit in. That's why sin never satisfied you. That's why compromise made you sick. You were never designed to be casual. You are a holy instrument measured, carved, tempered in fire. And now, the Master is reaching for you. This is your moment to respond, not with fear, but with faith. Not with logic, but with loyalty. Because what's about to happen in your life will not make natural sense, but it will make prophetic sense. And when it begins, you'll realize it was never random. It was always written. Type the number 811 inch, the comments. 8 is the number of new beginnings. 1 is divine unity. Together, 811 represents a new beginning, birthed in full alignment with heaven's design. When you type it, you're declaring, I'm stepping into the new, fully aligned, fully surrendered, fully ready. You're not just saying yes, you're saying now. You are ready. Not because you feel ready, but because he says you are. The scroll is open. The oil is fresh. The angels are moving. And your obedience is unlocking the rest. This is what it means to be sealed. To respond when it doesn't make sense. To move when others hesitate. To carry weight others ignore. To walk like you've already won, because in heaven's eyes, you have. There is a warning in the Spirit, one that heaven releases, not out of wrath, but out of mercy. It is gentle at first, like a whisper in the conscience. But when the call goes unheard, the tone shifts, because a sealed one cannot live as if they are unmarked. A chosen one cannot walk like the rest. There comes a point when delay becomes disobedience, and disobedience becomes dangerous. God's mercy is endless. Yes, but it is not aimless. It has direction, structure, and holy boundaries. And when you are sealed, you are not only protected, you are accountable. The seal upon your life demands response. It demands reverence. It carries the weight of heaven's trust. And with that trust comes responsibility you cannot run from. Chosen one. This is not a moment for rebellion disguised as hesitation. Heaven has been patient. But you are approaching the line. The line where God no longer holds back the consequences of ignored instruction, not because he desires your destruction, but because he refuses to let your scroll be wasted. There are things in motion now, assignments, people, opportunities, alignments, and they are waiting on your obedience. But if you refuse to move, if you harden your heart, if you settle into silence when heaven is calling for your voice, the oil will not wait forever. As the Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16, this is what the Lord says: stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths, ask where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But you said, we will not walk in it. Damn, that verse is not a myth. It's a mirror. You are standing at the crossroads now. The ancient path is available. The voice is still speaking. The Spirit is still drawing. But the response must come from you. Do not confuse comfort with peace. Some of what feels safe to your soul is actually a strategy of the enemy crafted to keep you distracted, delayed, or numb. There is such a thing as false rest, a counterfeit calm that lulls you into stagnancy. That kind of rest is not the rest of obedience. It's the sleep of rebellion. And when rebellion lingers too long in a chosen life, the consequences are holy and swift. Because the longer you carry the scroll without acting on it, the more the heavens shake. You were sealed not to spectate, but to stand, not to analyze, but to advance. Yes, God is patient, but heaven does not revolve around our preferences. There is a divine clock in motion, and you are on it. You have been warned before, in dreams, through divine disruptions, through that restless tension in your chest that won't go away, through the doors that won't open because they're no longer on your map, through the voices God silenced because they were leading you in circles. This is your final warning to obey, to walk away from what's slowly numbing your fire, to cut the ties that keep you tethered to old seasons, to choose the ancient path even when it costs you everything familiar. Because if you don't, the seal doesn't vanish, but the clarity fades. You'll still be chosen, but confusion will take over. You'll still be called, but your hearing will dull. And worst of all, you'll begin to justify your own stagnancy with spiritual language. Don't let it happen. Don't become one who once burned bright, but lost the flame due to spiritual passivity. Don't become one who talks of past encounters while ignoring the present call. Don't become a monument when you were called to be a movement. This is the mercy of God sounding the alarm one more time, not because He wants to frighten you, but because He loves you too much to let you sleep through this divine moment. What's ahead of you is weighty. What's on the other side of your yes is sacred, but you cannot reach it with half-hearted obedience. The seal requires full surrender, so take the warning seriously. Search your heart. Ask yourself what you've delayed. Ask what you've ignored. Ask what you've excused. Then repent, not from fear, but from love. Not because you're being threatened, but because you've been trusted. This is the sound of mercy, calling your name before judgment has the chance to speak. This is the final pause before the page turns. This is your moment to respond, not with noise, but with action. Heaven is not looking for a crowd. It's looking for the faithful, and you, chosen one, are still counted among them, if you'll choose the path now. There is something you need to understand now more than ever. Your spirit cannot be unmarked. Once heaven has sealed you, you are never the same. You can try to blend in. You can attempt to go back. You can even rebel. But deep within you, something will always feel off when you're outside your assignment. That is the evidence of the seal. It doesn't just rest on you, it claims you. That's why nothing else works. The old places don't feel like home. The old habits don't satisfy. The old connections feel strained. It's not because you're too picky, too emotional, or too intense. It's because your spiritual DNA has been altered. What others enjoy with ease now grieves you. What they can ignore now burns in you. You're not malfunctioning. You're evolving. You've been made holy in the unseen realm, and that holiness causes a disconnect with anything less. That's why the compromise that used to feel subtle now feels heavy. The entertainment that once numbed you now opens the door to warfare. Even your casual decisions seem to carry weight. It's because heaven is refusing to let you become numb again. The seal is still alive in you. When you are truly chosen, you can't unknow what God has shown you. You can't unfeel the pull. You can't unhear the call. And the more you try to run from it, the heavier life becomes. Not because God is punishing you, but because He refuses to let you live beneath your design. You weren't sealed to survive. You were sealed to govern. There are territories in the spirit you were meant to occupy. Realms of influence. Realms of intercession. Realms of divine authority. And until you stand where you belong, the tension within will not lift. You were not saved just to be comforted. You were marked to be deployed. Chosen one. The days of casual Christianity are over for you. The days of blending in, staying quiet, and moving without conviction, they are done. Heaven has drawn a line in the spirit, and your name is written on the side of the unshakable problicle. The ones who don't retreat when it gets uncomfortable. The ones who don't fold under pressure. The ones who burn quietly but walk with thunder. This is why you've had to carry so much. Why your warfare hasn't looked like everyone else's. Why your pruning felt endless. Because your scroll is not small. Your influence is not local. You carry global weight in your spirit. Generational keys. Prophetic blueprints. And that weight attracts resistance because it threatens darkness. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 8, verse 19 still echo today. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Creation is groaning for the revealed ones, the chosen, the marked, the sealed, not the famous, not the loud, not the perfect, But the ones who walk in raw obedience, the ones who don't negotiate with the call, the ones who know who they are and why they're here, and that's who you are becoming. Not a copy of someone else's calling, not a watered-down version of your gift, but the authentic, unfiltered, fire-tested, scroll-activated version of you. The one who walks with weight, the one who speaks and demons recognize the tone, the one who prays and atmospheres shift, the one who carries presence, not performance. That's why your life had to be interrupted. You were never supposed to follow the expected path. God had to wreck your plans so He could restore your identity. He had to strip the false layers so the real mantle could rest on your shoulders. And now that it has, you'll never move the same again. There's a new walk coming out of you, a new sound in your voice, a new stillness in your decisions, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally walking in step with who you've always been, beneath the wounds, beneath the fear, beneath the survival mode. The seal didn't change your worth, it revealed it. And as that revelation deepens, so does your responsibility, not to be perfect, not to perform, but to remain pure, to live in a way that honors the weight, to speak only when heaven speaks, to move only when the Spirit stirs, to stop letting emotions, people, and timing override the instruction of God, because you are not your own. You've been bought with a price, sealed with glory, and called to be a living scroll that others can read and find God. So no, you'll never be normal again. That season is gone. The seal has spoken. And from this point on, everything you carry must be stewarded with fire and with fear. Not fear of failure, but fear of wasting the call. You've crossed over now, and there is no turning back. There are moments in your life when God speaks through fire, loud, undeniable, overwhelming. But then there are other moments, like this one, where He speaks through clarity, through stillness, through the undeniable knowing in your spirit that everything is shifting. You're not the same. You can't move like you used to. You can't ignore the weight you now feel, not because you're burdened, but because you've been entrusted, chosen one. Your mantle is resting heavily now, isn't it? It's no longer something you hear about or hope for. It's something you carry, and carrying it has changed how you walk. It's changed what you say yes to. It's changed how you pray. You don't pray like others anymore because you're not like others. You don't move like others because what you carry requires discipline, requires stillness, requires obedience on a level that most won't understand. And that's okay. You were never sealed for public understanding. You were sealed for divine deployment. This is where the cost becomes clear. This is where the glory gets heavy. Because what's on your life now is no longer potential. It's purpose in motion. God has brought you through the private battles, the quiet testing, the long nights of nothingness, not to leave you wounded, but to ensure that when He releases you, you don't crumble under the weight of what you're about to walk in. And here's the truth. You are already walking in it. Look around. Look at how you think differently, how your discernment has sharpened, how your circle has narrowed, how your words carry weight, even when you speak casually. That's not just maturity. That's divine evidence. You're not becoming chosen. You're walking as the chosen. And the realm of darkness knows it. That's why things have intensified again. That's why your dreams have been strange. Why your sleep has been interrupted. Why you've felt a sense of pressing even when things seem outwardly stable. Because when your feet step into authority, warfare doesn't disappear, it adapts. It gets keter, more subtle, more disguised. The devil's next strategy isn't loud attack, it's silent erosion. Compromise disguised as wisdom, delay disguised as peace, passivity disguised as patience. But not you. You've been trained for this. You can feel when the atmosphere shifts. You sense when something is off. You know when someone's words are polished, but their spirit is polluted. That's not suspicion. That's spiritual insight. That's what happens when someone has been forged in the secret place. And now, everything you've carried in silence, your tears, your prayers, your obedience is about to become visible fruit. You don't need to announce yourself. The oil speaks for you. The scroll testifies for you. The Spirit confirms you. You are walking with the full backing of heaven. As it is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1, Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you, now and forever. You will find that people begin asking questions they never asked before. Doors will open that you didn't even knock on. Words will rise in your spirit that you never studied. This is what happens when a scroll is opened fully. Revelation flows. Power follows. Authority increases. But don't forget, your alignment must match your assignment. This is not a season for blending in. It's a season for bold movement. Every step now must be deliberate. Every connection must be discerned. Every response must be Spirit-led. Because you are not just being seen, you are being read. You are a living scroll. And people will encounter God through your obedience. And now, in this moment, I want to speak to your spirit directly. If everything inside of you has been resonating, if you felt the weight of this message, if you've been quietly nodding, crying, or sitting in stillness as these words confirmed what God's been whispering, then don't hold that moment in silence. Let it become an echo. Hit the like button so this word can reach more of the sealed ones like you. Share this message with someone whose fire is fading. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this isn't just a message. It's part of a movement. And comment below. Yes. Comment. Let this be your declaration. A simple phrase. A loud agreement in the spirit realm. I choose my crown. Oh, those 4 words say everything. They tell heaven you're ready. They tell hell you're not afraid. They tell your soul to stop shrinking. They say, I won't waste what I've been given. You are chosen. You are sealed. And now, you are being crowned. No more apologizing for your anointing. No more minimizing your message. No more asking for permission to rise. This is your moment. Wear it well. There's something about the way you see the world now. You don't just notice what's happening, you discern what's behind it. You no longer accept things at face value. Your eyes have been trained by trial, refined by revelation. And though it's cost you innocence, it's given you insight, the kind you can't earn in a classroom, only in a cave. You see things others miss, not because you're better, but because you've been called deeper. You carry a knowing, a constant awareness that you're not just walking through life. You're walking through a script already written, and the more you've suffered, the more pages you've unlocked. Pain has been your teacher. Silence has been your sanctuary. And through it all, God has made your spirit sharp. Chosen one, what you've endured hasn't made you weak. It's made you watchful. You are not paranoid. You are prophetic. You don't trust easily anymore. Not because you're bitter, but because your discernment has been awakened. The seal on your life comes with eyes that see and ears that hear, and the weight of that awareness is not small. It's the reason you've been misunderstood, the reason people assumed you were too intense, too quiet, or too distant. But they didn't know that your silence was spiritual surveillance. They didn't realize that while they were relaxing, you were scanning, that you were reading the unseen. Even when your lips never moved, God has trained you as a watcher, a guardian of atmospheres, an interpreter of moments, a discerner of spirits. Not because you asked for it, but because heaven needed someone who would not fall asleep on the wall. And you answered the call. You've stayed awake when others slept. You've stayed alert when others wandered. And even when you were weary, you refused to shut your eyes to what was real in the spirit. That's why God trusts you now with more. That's why the weight is increasing. That's why the mantle is maturing, because He knows you won't mishandle the mystery. According to what is written in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 11, to you it has been given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. There it is, confirmation. What others shrug off, you feel. What they laugh at, you tremble under. Because what has been given to you is not information, it's mystery. And mysteries are not for the curious, they're for the consecrated. That's why your life has had to be trimmed down. Your schedule, your relationships, your appetite for distractions. God is not punishing you. He's protecting your clarity. Because revelation isn't cheap. And the mysteries of heaven are only entrusted to those who will not waste them in careless conversation. You're learning how to hold what's holy in silence, how to carry what's sacred without performing, how to move in power without needing to be seen. This is maturity. This is what the scroll was always meant to produce in you. Not a platform, but a presence. Not popularity, but purity. You've seen the difference now, haven't you? Between those who operate in gifting and those who walk in authority, between the loud and the weighty, between charisma and consecration. You're no longer fooled by volume. You're looking for substance. You're listening for oil. And whether you realize it or not, others are starting to notice that you carry it. There's a stillness about you, a depth, a wisdom that can't be explained by age or experience. That's not human. That's heaven-built character. That's what happens when someone is sealed and surrendered. So don't be surprised if people begin to draw near, not for advice, but for peace. Don't be surprised when they can't explain why they feel safe around you. That's not personality. That's the presence you carry. It's the residue of the hours you spent in silence, the nights you laid before God, the decisions you made when no one was watching. You've become a walking altar. You don't even need to preach for people to encounter God. Sometimes it's in your eyes, sometimes in your calm, sometimes in your restraint. You're not forcing encounters, you're hosting them. Because heaven doesn't need a crowd to move. It needs a vessel. And that's what you are now. Not perfect, but present. Not flawless, but available. Not loud, but alive. Fully surrendered. Fully sealed. Fully awake. The mysteries are still unfolding. The scroll is still unrolling. But what's different now is this. You're no longer anxious about the process. You're settled, rooted, firm. because you finally understand that the one who sealed you will also sustain you. You are not striving. You are stewarding. You are not surviving. You are standing. And you are not second-guessing anymore, because now you know. You were always meant to be here. This is the moment the sealed begin to understand why they were hidden for so long, why their journey didn't look like anyone else's, why they were delayed while others were released, why the cost felt higher, the silence deeper, the fire hotter, because heaven doesn't rush what is holy. And you, chosen one, were always a holy vessel in the making. You were never just going to be someone who heard a message. You were always meant to be the message, a living testimony that God still trains in private, still preserves through pain, still seals what cannot be explained. And now, the weight you carry is more than a calling, it's a confirmation. You are no longer wondering if you're chosen. You are moving as one who knows it, breathes it, embodies it. You've reached the part of the scroll where purpose meets maturity, where revelation is no longer theory, it's now your rhythm. You no longer need signs to obey. You no longer wait for applause to move. You've become dangerous to darkness because you no longer need to be understood in order to walk in obedience. This is the fruit of surrender, the result of pressing when there was no platform, of staying silent when your flesh wanted to speak, of remaining in alignment when no one saw the cost. It's the reward of integrity in the wilderness. And heaven has noticed. The spirit realm knows when someone has crossed over from seeking into stewarding, from hoping into hosting, from waiting into walking. You're not looking for activation anymore. You are the activation. When you enter the room, things shift, not because of noise, but because of what's been built inside of you. The seal is no longer just a marking, it is a manifestation. Every prayer, every fast, every tear-soaked night has written itself into your spirit. And now, without needing to explain anything, you are carrying the sound of someone heaven has trusted with mysteries. It's a quiet authority, not aggressive, not boastful, but undeniable. The kind that makes demons scatter without a shout. The kind that makes weary souls breathe deeper. The kind that makes religious structures nervous because it cannot be manipulated or controlled. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 14. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Then, you've reached that place now. Rest in presence. You're not striving to prove you're anointed. You're not chasing confirmation. You're not comparing yourself to others. You've found peace in the presence of God, and that peace has become your power. You've stopped asking, "Why me?" and started walking in, "Send me." And still, the road ahead won't be without resistance. The more you rise, the more you'll be required to remain low, not in value, but in posture. This authority is not sustained by gifting. It is sustained by humility. What got you here? Obedience. Stillness. Intimacy must remain at the core of everything you do, because the seal is not a trophy. It is a trust. God didn't choose you for your charisma. He chose you because you would carry His heart, because you would weep for things others ignore, because you would say yes when it cost you everything, because you would not sell your scroll for comfort, for clicks, or for crowns. Chosen one, you are now standing where few ever reach, not because you're better, but because you didn't give up when it was silent. You stayed when it didn't make sense. You worshipped with no music, prayed with no audience, and obeyed with no applause. And now, you carry a credibility that cannot be manufactured. You are no longer chasing destiny, you're becoming it. Every step forward is not just a move for yourself, but for all those tied to your obedience. You are the first in your bloodline to say yes like this. The first to break cycles like this. The first to carry this weight and not collapse. You're not arriving. You've been released. So let the silence continue where it needs to. Let God keep hiding parts of you from public view. He's not keeping you back, He's preserving you for timing. Because the greatest impact isn't made by those who rush, but by those who move when heaven says, now, and heaven is saying now. The scroll is no longer unfolding, it's moving. Your life is no longer just a witness, it's a weapon. Your presence is no longer passive, it's prophetic. You don't walk in and out of calling anymore, you live in it. You are sealed. You are set. You are ready. And now, we arrive at the end. Yet this is not truly an end. It's a beginning. A line drawn in the spirit. You've heard the call. You've felt the weight. You've walked through each section not as a reader, but as one being revealed layer by layer, moment by moment, scroll by scroll. Chosen one. This isn't just a message. It's a mirror. A divine confirmation of what you've always known deep down. You were sealed for this exact moment in time. You are no longer waiting for permission to rise. Heaven has already released you. So now, the question is simple. What will you do with what you've heard? Let this be your next act of obedience. Like this message, if something inside you burned with truth, share it with someone else, sealed and silently searching. Comment below the words, I will not waste my scroll. Let that be your declaration. A final stamp on everything God has stirred in you. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Not out of obligation, but because voices like these are alignment tools for your spirit. This isn't just content, it's spiritual clarity. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. And you are not too late. Heaven knows your name. Angels recognize your oil. And darkness fears your yes. So, rise not someday, but now, because your scroll is not just active, it is alive. And so are you.